Am I the jerk for refusing to move in with my boyfriend after finding out he wants me to pay half the rent on the apartment he already owns? This has turned into a huge argument about money, fairness, and our future together, and now I'm questioning everything. I have been dating my boyfriend Ethan for just over 2 years. He's smart, funny, driven, and for the most part, we've had a really solid relationship. We've talked about marriage, kids someday, and building a life together. Moving in seemed like the natural next step. Ethan owns his own place, a 2-bedroom condo he bought 3 years ago, before we even met. It's in a nice part of town, close to both of our jobs. It seemed perfect. So, when he asked me recently if I wanted to move in with him, I was over the moon. I started imagining decorating, cooking dinner together, waking up side by side every day. But then the financial conversation happened, and it all came crashing down. We were sitting on his couch one night, talking about logistics. I asked, "Okay, so how we handle bills and expenses once I move in?" Without missing a beat, Ethan said, "We'll split everything 50-50ths. Rent, utilities, groceries, all of it." I froze. "Rent?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, half of the mortgage, basically. It's only fair." I was caught off guard. He owns the condo. The mortgage is in his name. My paying rent would just be me giving him money directly. So I said, "Wait, you mean you want me to pay you rent? Like a tenant?" He laughed like I was being silly and said, "Not like a tenant, like a partner. Couples split living costs. That's how it works." Here's where I struggled. I don't mind contributing. I fully expected to help with utilities, groceries, maybe even a smaller amount toward housing costs. But paying half the mortgage when his name is the only one on the deed felt different. That's not me splitting rent with a roommate. That's me helping him build equity in a property I don't own. Every dollar I'd pay would be going into his asset, not ours. So I said, "I don't think it's fair for me to pay half of your mortgage. That money just goes straight into your pocket. If we were renting a place together, sure, 50-50 makes sense. But this is different." Ethan's smile disappeared. He said, "So what? You just want to live here for free?" I shook my head. "No. I said I'd cover utilities, groceries, and I'd be willing to contribute a smaller amount for housing. But not half the mortgage. That feels like I'm paying rent to my boyfriend." He got defensive. "You make it sound like I'm trying to scam you. This is just what equal partners do. They share expenses equally. You're acting entitled." We argued back and forth for an hour. He insisted that rent is rent, whether it goes to a landlord or toward his mortgage. I kept saying it wasn't the same because I don't gain anything from it long term. I vented to some friends later, and their reactions were split. Half of them said I was right. If he owns the place, paying half is unfair. At most, I should contribute less since I'm not benefiting from equity. The other half said I was being cheap, and that of course I should pay half if I'm living there. One even said, "If you can't handle splitting 50-50, you're not ready for a serious relationship." So now I feel torn. A few days later, Ethan brought it up again. He said he'd been thinking, and he doubled down. "Look, if you move in, it's 50-50ths. Non-negotiable. Otherwise, it's not fair to me." I said, "So you'd rather I stay in my apartment and pay rent to a landlord than live with you and contribute in other ways?" He shrugged. "If you're not willing to pay equally, maybe you're not as serious about this relationship as I thought." That cut deep. I told him it's not about being serious, it's about fairness. If we were both renting a new place together, I'd happily split it. But moving into his place under those terms makes me feel like a tenant, not a partner. The fight ended with me saying I wasn't going to move in under those conditions. He said, "Fine, maybe we're not ready to live together." Of course, word got around to family because I vented to my sister. My sister's on my side. She said, "He's basically asking you to fund his investment. That's not fair unless your name's on the deed too." But when my parents heard, they were more traditional. My dad said, "When your mom and I moved in together, we split everything down the middle. That's what adults do." I tried to explain the difference between paying rent to a landlord and paying into a partner's mortgage, but he didn't see it. He just said, "If you want to live together, you both need to contribute equally." So even my own family, I'm getting mixed messages. Ethan and I are a stalemate. He says if I move in, I have to pay half the mortgage. I say I won't do that, but I'll contribute in other ways. Neither of us has budged. I still live in my own apartment paying rent. He still lives in his condo. We're still together, but there's tension. We've barely talked about the future since this blew up. And I keep wondering, if we can't agree on this, are we even financially compatible long-term? Part of me worries I'm being stubborn. Maybe I should just pay half and think of it as my share of living costs, regardless of where the money goes. But another part of me feels strongly that it's unfair to pour hundreds of dollars a month into his mortgage when I get no ownership or protection. What if we break up? He walks away with equity, and I walk away with nothing. I don't want to feel like a tenant in my own relationship. Just to add, last night he told me, honestly, if you can't see why this is fair, maybe you're not cut out for a real partnership. Relationships are about equality, and right now, you're acting like a freeloader. That word freeloader stung. I never intended to live there for free. I've always been willing to pay my share of expenses. I just don't think half the mortgage is fair when I don't own the place. Here's how I see it. If we were both renting a new place, I'd pay half. No problem. If we were married and the condo was ours, I'd pay half. But as a girlfriend moving into his condo, paying half the mortgage feels unfair and risky. I offered to contribute in other ways. Utilities, groceries, a smaller housing contribution. He said no. It's 50-50 or nothing.